Welcome back to a daily dose of good news. Have you ever been part of a group where you have been ashamed of the pathetic scale of your story when others are sharing theirs? Maybe it's tales of your travels. They speak of backpacking across the Andes or scuba diving the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. You visited Bognor once and scaled the climbing wall at your local leisure centre. Perhaps you struggle to see the £2 that you've lost as any real success when others talk about losing 3.5 stones. As a Christian, I get the same feeling when I'm in a room where we are sharing our testimonies. I grew up in a Christian family, going to church. I wasn't abused, mistreated or abandoned. I never did drugs or partied the night away. When I became a Christian, I knew I was forgiven, but let's be honest, my list of sins doesn't really make a dent in the reams of sinful living that others recount. So today's extract from Dr. Luke's testimony brings me a strange comfort. Now, one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. So he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. When a woman who had lived a sinful life in that town learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, she brought an alabaster jar of perfume. And as she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner." Jesus answered him, "Simon, I have something to tell you." "Tell me, teacher," he said. 2 men owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed him 500 denarii and the other 50. Neither of them had the money to pay him back, so he cancelled the debts of both. Now, which of them will love him more? Simon replied, "I suppose the one who had the bigger debt cancelled." "You have judged correctly," Jesus said. Then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, for she loved much. But he who has been forgiven little loves little." Then Jesus said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." The other guests began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" Jesus said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." Jesus is explaining the difference in reaction to himself. Simon, who is, as a Pharisee, had probably lived a very holy life, was welcoming and attentive to Jesus. The woman at his feet was exuberant in her expressive love for Jesus. Jesus wasn't saying that one was right and the other wrong. He wasn't saying that Simon should have been at his feet, weeping and using his beard to wipe up the tears. He was just stating the fact that if you have been forgiven many sins, that you will probably express your joy and freedom more exuberantly. But whether your sins are many or whether your sins are few, we all need to be forgiven. Whichever category you fit into, come to Jesus and ask him to forgive you. Then, whether you jump around and sing for joy or just sit quietly in your newfound peace, you can know that you are forgiven. See you tomorrow.